afternoon, everybody. Welcome to your Wednesday edition, our final episode for the week. As you guys know, no show tomorrow because it will be Thanksgiving. And yes, happy Thanksgiving to all of you who will be celebrating. We'll talk more about that later on. And then Friday, I will probably be out doing something else, not doing anything with financial markets. Actually, maybe selling some puts against some of my positions, depending on how the markets close on Friday, or at least get to close. Remember, half day on Friday, so keep that in mind. So that said, let's dive into our discussion for today. Gobble gains. And when I say gobble gains, I was just kind of looking for some catchy title for today's show relating to Thanksgiving. Really wasn't a lot of gains for the broader market indexes out there. So I'm going to start with our top 10, and then I'll work, or top 8, excuse me, and then I'll work our way to the top. Talk about Bitcoin, which is soaring again, which of course had a fantastic impact on the Microstrategy trades that I think many of us were in. Yeah. Well, Big M says congratulations to the Microstrategy put sellers. Careful. We're not done yet. I mean, we saw what it did the other day. Let's bring up Microstrategy just to start. MSTR. My dyslexia going today. It was a great day from a gap up perspective, right? You had yesterday's huge sell-off, but even with today's $35 move to the upside, 10% gain, we still haven't closed that gap from Monday's gap down. So I'm pretty sure, Big Gap, that we will be okay. I know we've got a couple people here sold the 350s. I sold the 340s. Maybe more than I should have, given the risk with MicroStrategy, but it'll end up being a great rate of return for the week, as long as we stay above 340. And even if we don't, we'll see how that all plans out. But I'll let you guys know on Monday how that trade ultimately handles. If if you're following the markets on Friday, as long as we stay above 340, there's no problem for me whatsoever. If we get something drastic down below that, then that could be a problem. Now, on that note, I think Margaret is here. Are you here, Margaret? I didn't see you in the chat yet. I've been growing ever more cautious and ever more concerned about MicroStrategy. And, we talked about it the other day on how it's just shady to think that this amount of transaction can be done without market movement. And there was a couple of comments that were brought up on the YouTube channel. Let me bring those up just so I can give some shout outs to those that are sending in comments and questions, which I always appreciate you doing. So one of the comments came in from, great. Let me just delete it. This is from Mike54. He says, Merlin, when you add $5.4 billion to Bitcoin's $1.85 trillion market cap, the price per coin should rise about $200. I think the market depth charts you're looking at aren't showing the full picture, and they don't show you the new orders that would come into the market as price goes up. So, Mike, you are 100% correct on it's not showing me the full picture. Coinbase is showing me, that's where I was pulling that chart from. Coinbase is going to show me a specific amount of liquidity. I don't think they're going to show you all of the assets that they're holding that you could potentially trade. So there is a commercial aspect to this that I'm sure MicroStrategy has access to this desk, which is a commercial dealer desk. However, the mistake you're making there is you're saying, well, if we just add 5.4 billion to the market cap of Bitcoin, it should move up by 200. The problem and challenge here with this is you have to find the Bitcoin. It's not like going to Walmart, which has 50,000 of a product on the shelves, and as soon as they sell out, they just order more, and demand just keeps keeping that price the same, right? The reason that Walmart can charge the same price for an item and sell 50,000, 100,000 is because they're continually selling in volume, and they can continue to fill those inventories. If I went to Walmart and I knew there were only a total of 1,000 of these items, Walmart might just sell them all right away at the maximum, at whatever price they feel comfortable. A smart businessman would say, I'll put 100 of them out there for sale and see how they sell. If they fly off the shelves, my price just went up 10%. If those sell, I'm going to keep rising my prices. And that's the way Bitcoin's working, is you have to find the Bitcoin. It's not a regular item. It's not a stock. There are people like myself and many of my viewers who are hoarding their Bitcoin off of the exchanges. To me, that's the problem. So Margaret, I love your efforts yesterday. She took one of my posts, which is it's a legitimate question of, where did you get it? I just want to know where you bought those 55,000 plus Bitcoin for $5.4 billion. Was it through an exchange? Was it through a dealing desk? Was it through some institutional firm? Just where is it? And then could you show me the receipt? Because I'm growing ever more skeptical that they have as much as they say they do. The largest address in the world for Bitcoin doesn't have anywhere close to 390,000 Bitcoin in it. The largest Bitcoin address wallet in the world has 248,000 Bitcoin. So this, hoard by MicroStrategy is significantly larger than the largest wallet on the planet. All right, there's nothing larger than this wallet with, $23 billion in it. Yet MicroStrategy says they have all of this. Where exactly? So Margaret went out and tagged every prominent person she could think of in the Bitcoin community, and so did I. I went out to all the educators and a bunch of other people. I sent direct messages to a lot of people that I know in the industry. I have not received one response from any individual anywhere with regards to this question. And it just makes me grow more and more, not concerned, that might be the wrong word, but it's just, the longer it goes with not understanding, and maybe it's my lack of understanding, I'm happy to admit that. I just need to see the evidence of what happened and then I'll understand it. Shocking to me that you can make that kind of transaction and barely move a market. Yet, apparently he just bought it and he's going to be buying more and more and more. I downloaded some really cool graphics which are on my computer downstairs that show their holdings. And I agree, Big Eb. Certainly, I'm a nobody on social media. Only have a few thousand followers, so I'm not somebody that, is at the top of their inboxes. But you would think at some point it would leak into someone's purview, and they would simply comment on it. At least someone in the industry. I mean, I'm talking Jameson Lopp, Dan Held, I'm talking Andreas Antonopoulos, I'm talking Invest Answers. I mean, guys that are entrenched in this and are constantly quoting this move from here to here to here to here. Where is it? That's all I want to know. Simple. And the longer it goes without me, knowing that, it makes me more suspect that this is an accounting fraud. I'd hate to say it. And don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not going to short MicroStrategy. There's not a chance on this great green earth I would short MicroStrategy. I just, no way. But it's making me a little bit more concerned. And again, we'll see what happens with the options next week. I think my options will probably expire Friday on MicroStrategy worthless. And if the premium is still really high, I will probably still continue to sell puts deep out of the money, like a significant ways away from current price, and go with it from there. Could it be that Saylor owns Bitcoin himself and holds it in a wallet and he did a private transaction? Nope, because we would have seen it. If he held those Bitcoin, and first off, he doesn't have that much money, right? MicroStrategy is the one that's got all the money. He may have had some, and maybe he had a couple hundred, maybe 1,000, maybe 10,000. But he certainly isn't holding 55,000 Bitcoin in his account. We'd be able to see it. Oh, I like that, Margaret. That's a good, oh man, we may do a whole show. I'll see if I can get, the guy that does invest videos. My brain just completely messed up. Colin Teddards. Colin Teddards is like my PI when it comes to financials. And maybe we'll get him on the program and see what he thinks about MicroStrategy, and maybe it's tragedy. That's I like that. That's catchy. That's got some ring to it. I will continue to try to find answers for you, but the longer I go without getting any response from anyone connected to the Bitcoin world, it makes me a little bit more suspect. It means that they just don't understand it either. A lot of you have sent in videos that explains pieces of it, but not exactly how it's all held. And the part that scared me the most yesterday was thinking, if the custodian of their Bitcoin is doing things behind the scenes like Celsius, Voyager, and BlockFi, which all went bankrupt, then you have the potential to have a massive systemic implosion, which is really scary. Really scary. I'm with Joe. I hope not. I really hope it's not a MicroStrategy, but the longer it goes with these kind of halos of uncertainty over it, makes me more and more nervous. I don't agree really with Citron's research that it's a Ponzi. What they're doing is smart. It's just if Bitcoin has a significant decline, then there will be a problem for MicroStrategy. And you know what? Some of you have asked me before, what about the crash in the 4-year cycle, right? I've been telling you guys for a couple of years now that I plan on selling my Bitcoin and all my crypto in December or November of next year. And what could line up there could potentially be, and I couldn't figure out what element might happen to cause that type of thing. And it could be something like a MicroStrategy, where all of a sudden SEC comes in and says, hey, where's all this Bitcoin that you say you have? Because we see all the entries, we see all the purchases, we see all the bonds you sold. Where is it? And they'll go to Fidelity and Coinbase like, where exactly is theirs? We don't know. And then that could cause something. So we'll talk about that when we get to September of next year. But yeah, well, for your sake, wait until Monday to peel back that MicroStrategy onion. I don't have enough time, Big Eb, to do that anyway. I'm going to be cooking all day tomorrow. So I will have no time to do any research whatsoever on those markets. So let me go back to the original plan, which is run through our top 8 markets for the day. You saw right now in our after-hour session, in our new session, we had a slightly down day for that 10-year. Now, this is definitely something of interest because I expected there to be a pullback from that 4.5 level, which we hit on last Friday. So a week ago, we hit 4.5%, and we've been selling off ever since. The question is, at what point do we get a little footing here? Is it 4.25, which is what I've heard from a couple of my friends say 4.25 is where they think it's going to stop out at? Well, it hasn't quite stopped yet. Okay, hasn't quite stopped. So we'll see if this keeps on drifting lower. I do expect it to rally higher. I think we'll be higher than 4.5% by the end of the year, which is only a little over a month away. But that was a down day for the 10-year. Your NASDAQ was down 0.86%. We could run through a lot of the tech names here. But 0.86% for this was their slide for the NASDAQ. And technically, nothing really exciting here. The negative piece today has to do with the uptrend that starts really back here in, let's say, August, right? Because we've been making this higher highs, higher lows. Great, everything is totally fine. And we still are in that condition of everything looks good. However, the fact that we didn't make a new high, we didn't breach this high from November 11th in this most recent last week and a half run up, it's not concerning. It's just saying it's got a little bit of weakness compared to what it had before. Now, if that weakness does persist and we start to see it drop lower, then we're looking at turning points like right here, where if it gets down below that, we could be looking at potentially making some new lower lows and that trend reversing. So a little bit of weakness coming into that NASDAQ, even though it was down 0.86 on the day. It's not the end of the world. The trend still looks great, just not quite as strong as it was the last week. Dollar index down 0.75%. We had this mapped out as kind of a target level right at that is actually, I'll double click on this. It should be 106. Right, and we came right back down to that one today. That was kind of the target whole number breakout point. We rallied all the way up to 108 on the dollar index on last Friday. Sold all the way back down to, on Wednesday here today, of 1.106. So a pretty significant pullback, but right back to a logical area of pullback as well. So coming back into the demand. What did we say? Merlin making me nervous. Yeah, Liz, but I don't want to. Right now on the 10-year chart, Merlin wrote, he owes you a beer. Oh, yeah. He knows that. It's been there for a long time. I've conceded. My only mistake was I should have said at the end of the year, not at any point before the end of the year, because I will be right on this one. You want to double or nothing, I'll do it. But I'm pretty sure we will continue to be higher than 4%. It was just this weird dip here that happened for a couple of months. That earned him a beer. I'm going to be out $8 or $10 on that one. Dang it, I'm going broke. S&P, beautiful. Still going, still trucking. Obviously, a lot of attention on the tech areas. There's a potential lawsuit coming in place on Microsoft. We've got the antitrust stuff on Google. We have other issues in the tech space which are causing a little bit of concern. However, S&P still moving strongly to the upside. Today was just a little bit of a breather. Gave back some of yesterday's gains, but looks fantastic. Still sitting at all-time highs. Crude oil, nothing changed. I don't even need to talk about this one. Just looks kind of weak. Just meh. Right? Just drifting lower. Still need to get below that $66 level on crude oil. Until then, I think this is going to get more and more boring. Our podium time. We had 3 markets that were to the upside today. Russell 2000 comes in with your bronze medal. Similar picture to the S&P with this beautiful trend going on. Love it. I do think that the bullishness will persist there if that short end of the yield curve gets yanked down more, which we'll talk about that here in just a second. Steve says, Merlin, if that 10-year rises, does that push the dollar higher? Well, it's a tricky question. I would say yes. So as the interest rates get higher, the probability of the dollar increasing are higher because, of course, more people have to buy dollars to buy these government bonds. There's other forces out there that certainly would push that, depending on what they do with that short end of the yield curve. Right now, the expectation, and we haven't looked at this, but I believe the expectation is still a 25 basis point cut next month. Now, that may come into question here with the inflation data that we got today. So I'll get to that here in just a second. But yes, it would imply that the dollar is going to continue to move up, which means further downward pressure on the equity markets. Or, I'd say further downward pressure. You look at the S&P, you say, what downward pressure on the markets, right? But rising interest rates, rising dollar is kind of a brake pedal for the market. So, yes, I do think these rates are going to continue to move up here. Part of the reason I think we're seeing such a juiced market this last couple of weeks has been the dollar index has been looking weak. So has the 10-year. All right, second place, gold. Really not much on a daily activity. What you had was a pretty nice gap up and then just really stuck right there. All in all, it still looks okay. From a trend perspective, what makes me nervous about gold is we did break below this low from October 9th, right, in this grand scheme of an uptrend. So we have been breaking through some levels, although it's not really having any aggressive follow through to the downside here. But as that dollar gets more in question and the inflation debate comes back to the table, which we'll talk about here in a minute, that certainly could put more pressure on gold to the upside, in my opinion. And finally, nice recoup of a 2-day ugly sell-off that had a lot of people really freaking out. And it's one of those ones where you just kind of go, hold on, it's okay. This is Bitcoin. It has a lot of volatility. We had a nice move up today in the futures. 97,945 is where we closed at today, up 6.54% on the day for Bitcoin. Nice little Thanksgiving juice for my portfolio as well. Let me look at you guys' questions here. NVIDIA has been nicked as of late. Yeah. And I still hold to the premise that I think that consumption from the big players is going to start to hurt them a little bit. I'm definitely not saying that the end is here and this thing's going to implode, but just the consistency of raising their forecasts and huge earnings beats and just epic numbers of triple-digit gains in different areas of the company, those are not going to happen perpetually. It'll start to slow down at some point, and I think that that's kind of being reflected here. So, yeah, NVIDIA taking a little bit of a nick recently. What else we got here? What are you planning on purchasing with the great Black Friday sales? Nothing. I'm not planning on purchasing anything. There's an interesting movie on Netflix out right now called Buy Now. Interesting. You should check it out. There certainly might be some conspiracy pieces in there, but I think it does talk a lot about consumerism. And one of the things I've tried to do, I'm trying my best to do, I would admit I'm not that great at it, is I'm an impulsive buyer. If I want something, I just buy it. I don't care. No one's going to persuade me otherwise. But I look at my surroundings of all the stuff I have, and I have so many things that I've purchased that I just don't use. So I did buy something, and I will be using that tomorrow. I bought a wireless probe I'm going to be smoking a turkey tomorrow, and I'm tired of going out there and checking manually all the time. I got a wireless Bluetooth, connection meat probe. That's all I'm buying. I really don't plan on buying anything tomorrow. I don't see the need to get wrapped up in capitalism just because I need to. But to be fair here, Margaret, will I be looking out on Amazon's deal page and seeing what they got to offer? Sure, I'm only human, but I don't plan on buying anything. I've got nothing on my list that I say I have to buy that. I've got everything I want, so yeah, no need to waste my money. I'd rather save $1,000 versus buying a brand new giant TV. Take that $1,000, keep it in trading accounts, and grow that over time and compound it. That's a better interest for me. I heard Microstrategy holds Bitcoin in many different wallets. So, dog bones, good point. I've heard that as well. And here's my issue. People have asked me in the past, do you think that the U.S. government will hold Bitcoin, or that Bitcoin will be the like the reserve currency of the world? No, I don't. Do I think that the U.S. government will have a strategic reserve of Bitcoin? I think that the U.S. government will say they have a strategic reserve of Bitcoin, but I don't think that they're going to do what I just showed you. If I was Michael Saylor, what I would do is I would put all of my Bitcoin in one wallet in cold storage. So it doesn't have to be a ledger. Ledger probably at that level probably is not going to be that safe. I would pick something different other than a ledger. But I'd find a way to take them off of every exchange. Microstrategy, please take all your Bitcoin off of Coinbase, take it off of Fidelity, take it off of Axos, take it off of every place that you have and put it into a one wallet address where we can all look at it like this and click and go, that right there, that's Michael Saylor. Because these Bitcoin that you see here are technically outside of circulation. Actually, that's not true. It depends on how they structure it over at Binance. But when you put it on your cold wallet, cold storage, it's outside of circulation. They can't lend it out. There's no accounting ledger. They can say, oh, well, this is yours, and this is, it's not no fractional reserve crypto, which is what I think is going on behind the scenes with Microstrategy. So if you really want to make it work and watch MicroStrategy's price shoot up $1,000, all Michael Saylor would have to do, in my opinion, would be to put it in a wallet, point at it, and tell everybody in the world, this is my address. Matter of fact, change your name of your company to that wallet address right there, right? If that was yours. And let everyone know, I actually own this. I have all this stuff. It's ours. Right now, most of us have to operate off this belief system when we look at a company's financial statements. When I look at things like this, when I look at this right here, let me bring this one up here real quick. So let's say I bring up this page right here. Let me get rid of that. And we look at the companies with the most cash on hand. So you look here, and Berkshire Hathaway has $325 billion in cash. Is anybody here able to prove that? There's not one of you can prove that. There's no, where's the bank? Where is this money held? But we all read these numbers and we have to take it at face value that, they've got $325 billion. Google's got $93 billion. Amazon's got $91 billion. Microsoft, $78 billion. Do they? Right? We have to trust this system. This is why I love crypto, because I don't have to trust these people's statements with crypto. If I want to, all I have to do is give an address and everyone will know, I do in fact own whatever is in that wallet. So the government, if we went to a U.S. Treasury Reserve, a strategic reserve of Bitcoin, which I think they should do, the right thing for the government to do would be to hold it in a hardware wallet where the entire U.S. population could look at it. That's not going to happen. What will happen is they will probably keep it at some crypto broker, Coinbase or Coinbase or Kraken, Gemini, something like that, as custodian for it, and will still be left wondering who the hell owns what. That bugs me. That I don't like. I love Bitcoin from the fact of transparency and ownership. And if Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy actually had a wallet address and we could all verify it, I'd buy MicroStrategy. I'd absolutely buy it because I trust that I see that number. When I look at what BlackRock says they have, when I look at what every company says they have, I have no proof. I'm not in the finance department. I don't actually see their balance sheets. I don't know. Well, balance sheets could be cooked, right? So this just makes me feel uncertain about so many different things in this market. Let's see. So beware, everyone is coming out with a meme coin. The Hawk2 girl is creating one. I know. Guys, look, it takes 7 minutes. So the reason that Hawk2 one will do okay is because she's got marketing power. She's got her name behind it, and it'll probably make her a few $1 million right away. And I assure you, she's not the one making this crypto. Someone made it for her and created the liquidity pool. Now she has a token or coin, a token that she can sell. So it's a token, not a coin. So they make them for everything. Whatever the hottest topic, there's a meme coin for it. Just stay away from that garbage. Big up. Public companies with SOX control is most likely valid for Berkshire Hathaway. Interactive Broker is up there on the list. Wow. Yeah, Interactive Broker is huge. Now, it makes me wonder if Interactive Brokers, it says cash, but I can't help but to think that that's got to be some customer deposits in there. That's a lot of money. Schwab's got $56 billion. I remember a couple years back when everyone thought Schwab was going bankrupt, and you looked at their cash on hand. I was like, they got a lot of cash. I don't think bankruptcy's in the cards for them. But yeah, I have a difficulty now from a trust perspective looking at these numbers saying, oh yeah, sure, yep, they have it all. I don't know. I guess the MicroStrategy thing is really kind of, I'm not going to say freaked me out, but made me really concerned about if people say they are doing something, are they actually doing it, right? Do they actually hold these assets? So let's talk about inflation real quick since we're on that topic. I had a little inflation gauge here created by AI with a dial that makes no sense whatsoever. But really, our numbers for today looked okay. I mean, it looked like this was just a calm, flat day in the ocean from a surf perspective. Your GDP numbers, right? We came in at 2.8% on our GDP number. No big deal. We obviously like to be above 3%. We talked about the incoming Secretary of Treasury. He's got that 3-3-3 policy. One of those threes is 3% economic growth, which is GDP. Well, we're not that far off from it. I'll zoom in until after the COVID pandemic issues. 3% would be right there. So we're pretty darn close to it. So all in all, fine, but it was 2.8% annualized GDP growth there. Your unemployment claims were just slightly less, so no big deal. Your durable goods orders. So for those of you who are kind of not big on these economic data points, Forex Factory does a really good job of explaining what they are. So if you don't know what durable goods orders are, you could click on this little folder here, and it tells you these are items with life expectancy of more than 3 years, such as automobiles, computers, appliances, and airplanes. So that's durable goods orders. And then you can look at core, and then core durable goods takes out transportation, like cars and airplanes. So just wait for you to kind of learn about some of these different market indicators if you are interested that way. So those numbers, durable goods orders, looked actually pretty good. It was negative 0.7 before. Expectations were going to be at 0.4. So not as good as what they expected, but certainly back into positive territory. But core durable goods orders, when you strip out transportation stocks or transportation items, not good. We missed our mark there. So you've got a flat piece of info with the GDP numbers. Your durable goods orders for both of them are actually worse than expectations, so that's not very good. You look at wholesale inventories. Inventories are starting to pile up a little bit. That's not a good sign. You certainly like to have inventories declining in a consumption period like right now, going into the holiday season. And then the big piece for the day was this core PCE price index number, 0.3%. So we've stuck right where we were at for the last month at 0.3. Now, this isn't necessarily a good or a bad piece. It's bad if you look at it as an annualized number, which would make our our inflation number 3.6%, right? 0.3 times 12 is 3.6%, which is much higher than what the current administration and our central bankers want to see. Now, the question is, what's going to happen with interest rates? We know we have one more meeting left for the end of the year. That's going to happen on December 18th. And I will show you what the probability is right now. You're looking at a 66% chance that we're going to see a 25 basis point cut in December, which I've been saying along. I think that's probably the right thing to do. You've already started cutting. We did a 50, a 25, now do another 25, and let's just kind of take it slow. The concern I think the markets may have going into Q1 of next year is if inflation is still a bit of a pest, it doesn't subside, right? And we see the next core PCE price index number come out at 0.3 or 0.4%, then the prospects of more rate cuts decline significantly. At a minimum, they would go into a holding pattern and see if that inflation number started to rise more and more and more. If that inflation number does start to rise as we enter January, February, March, April, then those rate cuts will certainly stop. They'll go flat for a while and potentially start to increase. And many of you have said this before, and I think I echo the sentiment as well, is it was a mistake to cut 50 basis points. They really should have just held where they were at and maybe one time for the election juice the market a little bit, but keep things right where it's at. Everything was going all right. You didn't need to shock the system with a 50 basis point cut, which I hope comes back and ends up biting him because that was the wrong thing to do. I know that Bill Addis says that the Fed should be taking a victory lap. I think they should on some fronts, but when you don't meet your objective and you already start celebrating, that's when you fail. I've seen countless times, I'm sure some of you have seen this as well, where the guy is like slowing down at the finish line in like a marathon and he's got his arms up. He's like, oh yeah, I made it. And all of a sudden some guy comes flying by him and takes the victory. I almost feel like that's what the Fed's doing. You're celebrating too early. You never actually reached your goal of 2% inflation. Terrible. All right, let's see. Sorry. Hey, good to see you, Chio. No worries. Always good to be late. Liz says, let's hope MicroStrategy's auditors don't walk away. Oh, man. If they do, that would be a huge red flag. Yeah, that'd be really bad. And obviously there's auditors there to monitor this, right, for MicroStrategy and make sure that they're above board. And I'd like to think that they're above board. I just think that if someone who's such a proponent of Bitcoin, who Michael Saylor is, I would argue he's probably the number one fan. Maybe Robert Breedlove might be more so, but at least Michael Saylor is buying so much of it. He's the number one fan out there. You would think that he'd be smart enough to realize that if you put it into cold storage and take it out of the system, it gets harder to buy. There's less shenanigans that Fidelity can do on their books or Coinbase can do on their books and just, ledger entry these Bitcoin into different people's accounts. You move it off, you're taking liquidity away from the marketplace. And we're talking 390,000 of them. I mean, that's a big amount. That's a very, very large amount. So I would assume that they're above board because KPMG is their auditor. I would assume they're above board, but in my mind, they're doing things the wrong way. If you really want to increase the price of Bitcoin like they want to do, you put it in cold storage. Bitcoin would soar significantly from there. Significantly, because now that 390,000 is outside of these institutional hands, which create the problems. Michael Saylor posted that Microstrategy is a credit default swap on $100 trillion 20th century assets. What they're basically saying with that, Marcus says, I don't know. A credit default swap is basically a financial instrument that you buy that goes up in value when something defaults. So if you think that the market's going to default, in this case, what Michael Saylor is saying is that the U.S. government would default on their debt or have some major financial issue going forward, and MicroStrategy is your kind of hedge against that. That's essentially what they're setting themselves up to be, is we're a default swap. So if there is a default on the part of the government and the financial markets should go to hell in a handbasket, we've got all this Bitcoin. Our value will go up, not down. So I think that's typically how credit default swaps work. Now, these are generally very heavily leveraged instruments done only by institutions. You and I will typically not have access to, the default swap market. These are institutional trading products. But who knows? The way the ETFs are going, we'll probably have credit default swap ETFs that you can buy in the future. But yeah, that's essentially Michael Saylor's attitude is we're your protection against the markets imploding. Steve Wolf says, don't you think a new administration is going to push for lower rates no matter what the data says? If there is a different Treasury Secretary, what can they do to pressure the Fed to lower rates? Well, I mean, there needs to be some synergy between them. There's obviously communication between the government, the three branches, your Treasury Department, and the Federal Reserve. On paper, and according to the bylaws, the Fed is an independent entity. It's not going to be influenced by the Treasury or government. I say BS to that. I do believe that there is absolutely some pressure from above to move that needle. I do think that 50 basis point cut was a pressure push from the current administration. I think that they were forced to do that. I can't see a reason why they could justify a 50 basis point cut, yet they did it. So what pressure could the Treasury put? I don't know if they could necessarily put pressure on it. It would just be working in conjunction with the Fed to work on economic growth. Because if you got a dual mandate, right, full employment and stable prices. So as long as inflation doesn't get out of hand, you can cut those rates as much as you want. We're already at full employment, and if this next administration comes in and does a lot of things they'd like to do, we could make the assumption twofold. Number one, that we will see some new job creation. Obviously, they're being very pro-crypto. They want all new digital asset companies to be in the United States. On the other side of this, you look at the spectrum of fear that Elon Musk is creating. And if you haven't seen it, guys, it's awesome. Just look at Elon Musk's Twitter posts about his memes about government and cutting costs and getting rid. I think he posted one yesterday. It was like, first day at the IRS, what did you do today? That type of stuff. And Elon, I think he's joking because he doesn't have the power to cut jobs. He's going to be giving recommendations to Trump. Remember, I mentioned this, I think last year. Was it last year? No, it wasn't last year. I mentioned this a while back, which was if it sounds great to fix our budget deficit, to get us back on track as an economy, as a government, whatever, we have to cut costs, period. I don't think anyone can really argue that. We have to either make more money or cut costs. And, well, cutting costs is the easy one because we're reckless with our spending. So if you have someone like Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy go in there and start just gutting government offices, like Milton Friedman just saying, hey, I want this one gone, Department of Education gone, and this one, they just gut them, you're going to have tens of thousands of people filing for unemployment and potentially some problems with those different departments and in those areas that they were governing. So it sounds great to hear Elon Musk attack and say we're going to cut just gut these things, I think Trump is going to understand there'll be some kickback, some pushback, certainly within the Republican Party and the Democrats Party about cutting so much. We'll see what happens when he's put in office and push comes to shove and see what really happens. Certainly there will be some job loss, but that could start to impact our unemployment numbers as well going forward. And of course, the Fed would not want to see that because their job is full employment is their mandate. Do you still think Bitcoin will hit 100,000 by the end of the year? Well, I mean, technically, Lisa, it did hit it on Monday. Was it Monday? If you look at the futures markets, it did hit it. I like the survey we did a while back, which talked about how many of you think it's going to hit 100,000 by Thanksgiving. I think there's a very real chance that it gets hit by tomorrow or by end of day tomorrow. I mean, just look at the momentum here. It's not like it needs that much further to go. And today's momentum is, you had right here panic. People were starting to freak out. I mean, I had people telling me, oh, it's going to go to 60,000. It's going to go to 70,000. I'm like, I don't think so. I just don't see that panic there yet. Well, from current levels to get to 100,000 is a gain of 3.62% from where we are right now. We moved 5.04% today already. So 3.62% isn't that big of a deal. The challenge is when we get to that 100,000, there's a big sell wall. There's a lot of sellers looking to unload, and they'll be selling at 99,999, right in front of that $100,000 wall. As Margaret says, Bitcoin trades 24/7, right? Which is why I'd rather look at this chart, which is the spot futures, which is the actual traded instrument, not Bitcoin futures. So Bitcoin futures did hit on last Friday. We hit 100,000. So technically, I don't know, you're splitting hairs there. What do you guys think? Did Bitcoin hit 100,000 or no? Simply yes or no. Did Bitcoin hit 100,000? Yes or no? Big M says sellers equals buyers. Yep, and at some point, those buyers, I believe, will outnumber the buyers. Or sorry, the buyers will outnumber the sellers at a certain point. So in my opinion, we haven't broken 100,000 because I don't believe the futures market is representative of the actual price of Bitcoin. The futures market is an anticipatory thing. It's saying in the future we believe. To me, I look at spot and say spot did not break it, therefore I don't believe we have broken $100,000 on Bitcoin. Even though futures did, I still say no because it's not actually Bitcoin. Remember, the Bitcoin futures don't trade Bitcoin. I think it's 5 Bitcoins. They have 5 different sources where they average the price so it doesn't get crazy, which is smart to do. But it's also the futures. So we're looking at, third week of December right now, futures contract for Bitcoin. Well, you have some extrinsic value. There's time value there of anticipatory. That's not actually in the real price of Bitcoin. So in my opinion, I don't think we've hit 100,000. I don't think we've broken 100,000. Now, to Jim's point, do you think it can blast through 100,000? Yeah. And here's my hope. My hope is that Michael Saylor, who says he's going to buy $42 billion worth of Bitcoin, is finger on the trigger ready to buy. And as it gets to 99,000, everybody and their mother right now is thinking it's going to hit 100,000 and sell off. I mean, look what it did last time. It hit 100,000 back here on Friday. It actually hit 99,800. Okay, we'll call that 100. And it sold off pretty sharply over the last 5 days. Now all of a sudden, huge jump today. That momentum could carry right up to 100,000. And again, what you'll see is selling come in. What it's going to take is one of two things. Either the sellers who are here sell their Bitcoin and it just rips through it, which I think is probably what will happen, or a buyer comes in here and blasts them out of the way. So you've got the Michael Saylor effect, which is the buyer coming in to blast them out of the way. Then you have a lot of people who I think they're all talk at this point. Like, yeah, I'll sell when it gets to 100,000. But, I could walk through this room right now and I know we've got a bunch of people here who hold Bitcoin. I don't think any one of you is going to sell when it gets to 100,000. If it gets to 100,000, would you want to sell at 99,999? No, absolutely not. Because of the scarcity of this thing, it's probably going to cause a lot of those sellers who may have an order to sell to go, nah, I'm out. Because you know it's going to go higher. And if those sellers lift, then you'll see the big move. So yes, long-winded answer, Jim. I do believe it can blast through 100K. I do believe it can blast through it. And I think it's going to. Just like November 2020 when we got like 19,800 and it fell back for like 3 weeks. till it actually broke. And then once it broke, Jim, it just ripped, like it typically does. What if it breaks straight through that sell wall and starts triggering stop losses? Then what you get is you get short squeeze, right? Because you got people who are shorting it right now as well. You have people using leverage markets and are shorting it. You now have people who can buy puts on, IBIT, so you can, buy puts on Bitcoin futures products or Bitcoin ETFs, excuse me. So there's now ways you can short, and I think what will happen is there's a lot of people who are speculating it's going to go down from 100,000. If you rip through that 100,000 level, you squeeze those people, you liquidate their positions, that creates buying opportunity, more buying pressure, and then you get the big move. So I'm one of those believers, like once it breaks 100, I think you're looking at 110 to 120 within a day or two. I just think that momentum is going to be just like, it did it, boom. We'll see. See, Big Eb's in my camp as well. I asked me at 249,000. At 249,000, I'm looking at it going, that's already my out number, right? If I sell out all of my Bitcoin at 249,999 because it's just below 250, that's that point of financial independence that I've been looking for. And that's not just the Bitcoin, that's all the other crypto I have as well. So at that point, I'd be happy to sell it off, and I do think you'll see some correction coming, but time will tell. I'm going to look for Bitcoin journalists and ask the question, where did MicroStrategy buy it? I appreciate it, Lisa. See if you can find it. I would love to. And look, I'm not saying that they didn't buy, but because no one can tell me where, when, how, or anything at all related to how it happened, it makes me more and more suspect every single day. So I would love to have a conversation with someone about it. How did it happen? How is he pulling off these massive transactions? And the chart I showed you guys is not necessarily the best example, which was, here's Coinbase's retail marketplace. That's not going to have the best liquidity in the world. But where out there can I go and readily buy 50,000 Bitcoin without moving the market? I find that hard to believe. Really hard to believe. Thank you, Chio. Always the proponent of hit that like button. Is there that many people shorting it? You have... I think the answer is yes. So what you get is you get a lot of speculators. If you trade on a non-US exchange, so let's say, for example, you decide to use KuCoin or Bybit or Binance.com because you live outside of America, you can go in there and use leverage products and get 50 to 1 leverage, 100 to 1 leverage. I've seen 1,000 to 1 leverage before. So what happens is people go, oh, when it hits 100,000, it's just going to fall a little bit, I'll short. So when those people go into perpetual futures and short those markets, they're obviously using massive leverage. That's an easy way to wipe them out. And whole number psychology draws people in, right? It brings in more and more people that think whole numbers is going to be the milestone. It just can't break through. And to me, it draws it like a magnet. I felt for a while that we're going to head to 100,000, and now it's a question of how quickly do we break through it. I do think that we've been pretty extended here in Bitcoin, but this is all because of regulatory change, something I've been talking about in my crypto courses for the last 4 years. Actually, longer than that. I started in the crypto class back in 2017, so it's been 7 years I've been talking about regulation being the big key and catalyst for crypto. And as these years have progressed, it's become clearer and clearer how it was forming, and all of a sudden, it's ripping. I think I posted... I retweeted something on my Twitter page about Cynthia Loomis. I don't know if you guys want to check that one out, but go to my Twitter page and you'll see what Cynthia Loomis, it's a video that she did, which is great. She just talks about these markets morphing because of regulatory environments. And I'm going to see if I can bring it up for you here. Home. I always have a hard time finding my post. Oh, I guess I didn't retweet that one out. I thought I retweeted it. My bad. I'll have to go and find it and put it out there because it was really good. Are the big players loaning Bitcoin to Michael Saylor? I think, and what I believe is happening is institutions like Coinbase, Fidelity, BlackRock even, who may have a large amount. I mean, obviously, we know Coinbase has a lot of Bitcoin just because of customer deposits. So let's say, I'm making it easy. Let's say that Coinbase has 1 million customers. Well, let's say 100,000 customers. So Coinbase has an example here. Let's make a disclaimer. Let's say hypothetically, Coinbase has 100,000 customers and each one of them deposits 1 Bitcoin. Now, Michael Saylor and Microstrategy come over as a Coinbase customer and say, hey, we need to buy 55,000 Bitcoin. two things can happen. The order for the Bitcoin through Coinbase could go directly to their liquidity pool and their market and just drive prices up exponentially. Or I think what could happen is, and this is the way that stocks and your banks work, is the Coinbase would say, oh, okay, sure. You now have on your books, you can see, you log in your account and it shows you got 55,000 Bitcoin. But they didn't actually go out and buy them. That's what I believe is happening here, that it's a shuffling of accounts, which to me is not above board, right? In the minds of MicroStrategy, they're probably saying, hey, we've got 55,000 Bitcoin now in our account. The problem is if MicroStrategy, with their new 55,000 Bitcoin, decides to go sell, and all 100,000 customers of MicroStrategy try to sell their one Bitcoin at the same time, now you have a bankruptcy waiting to happen. Because Coinbase now has to come up with 155,000 Bitcoin and they only have 100,000. That creates the problem. And this is the way that it's fractional reserve banking is what it is. So, since we don't have the rules in place for that yet, I'm interested to see how this transpires. If it's in fact being handled that way. I like to think that MicroStrategy is actually buying physical Bitcoin. It's going into the coffers of some firm, but I'm leaning more and more towards this is fractional reserve lending going on just like a bank with these crypto firms. And that's what scares me. They're buying something that doesn't exist. It's an accounting entry. And what they're betting on, Steve, is they're betting that not all customers are going to sell at the same time. And they're right. I mean, how does my Chase Bank function? If I have $1 million at the bank, I could let's make it easy. I have $100,000 at the bank. The bank probably has no problem filling my demand should I decide to take my $100,000 at once. They've got a couple $100,000 in cash. But if they've got 1,000 clients with $100,000 each and everyone demands their money at once, that bank shuts their doors. There is no money there. And that system is insured by the FDIC. We have nothing like that in the place of crypto at this moment. So that makes me nervous. Exactly, Steve. If this is fractional reserve banking, this is a house of cards. That's why I'm starting to get a little concerned. And again, I love it if someone proved me wrong, right? My brain's going down this rabbit hole of potential problems because I can't see mathematically how you could buy that much Bitcoin. But anyway, we talk about this one too much. Let's see. Why can't we track MicroStrategy's transactions on the blockchain? That's exactly what's one of my points, MTB, because they're not doing open market transactions. They're going through somebody. Was that BlackRock? Is it Coinbase? Is it Fidelity? How exactly is it happening? I would feel totally at peace if I could look and say, that transaction, that was MicroStrategy's buying 5.4 billion. I'd shut up. And not only would I shut up, I'd buy MicroStrategy. Point made. All right, sorry, we got to go off this topic. I don't want to. I know a lot of people here are like, God, stop with this MicroStrategy and Bitcoin. No crypto. Yep, we will see how it plays out, everybody. Absolutely, there's nothing we can really do as opposed to just be careful. Elise says, when did you start teaching crypto at OTA? I taught the first crypto class in November, December of 2017. So right as the halving happened. As the halving happened and also when they forked into Bitcoin Cash. It was fun. It was really fun. I bank at Bank of America. They said that they did not have the capacity of giving me $20K in cash to purchase a vehicle without 10-day notice. Okay. Maybe there's a certain amount of cash. I would just assume, Steve, that a bank would have at least 100 grand in cash. But yeah, maybe it's like 50 grand in cash or 20 grand. That money's all lent out. What will happen to MicroStrategy in a bear market? In a bear market for stocks, Robert, I think they're exclusive. I actually do feel like MicroStrategy's performance and the stock market are non-correlated whatsoever. I think now if you have a continuous bull market in cryptocurrency, then you're going to have a continuous bull market in the price of MicroStrategy. And it actually could be beneficial if the equity markets do crash, because money moves from one place to another. And if the equity markets start to implode, people are going to try to buy Bitcoin. They're going to go, oh, I'll just buy MicroStrategy instead. So I think they're totally separate. If the equity markets crash, I think MicroStrategy will do well only if crypto continues to move up. I appreciate that, Thomasina. I appreciate that. All right, let me wrap up here. I did not plan on doing another 1 hour show yet. Here we are again. For tomorrow, market's closed. So, well, crypto won't be closed, so we'll see what happens tomorrow with regards to Bitcoin. I still am in the camp of, I think we'll see 100,000 between today and open of markets on Friday. That said, market on Friday will be a half day. I will not be doing a show. So, I love AI and the pictures. I just want to wish everyone here a very happy Thanksgiving, and I like at the very beginning, whether you celebrate it or not. I think there's some historical negativity around how Thanksgiving came to be, but for me, it just represents times to be thankful for everything we have, whether that's your family, your friends, your animals, your loved ones, whatever the case may be. So on behalf of myself, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. I'm very thankful that you all decide to join me every single day. I know you got a lot of other places you could be, yet you decide to come here every single day. So thank you guys so much. Hope you have a fantastic weekend and a great Thanksgiving. I will see you all on Monday. If you have anything you want me to discuss on those shows on Monday or next week, let me know. If you find any answers out about Microstrategy or guests that want to come on the program and talk about it, more than happy to have them on. As long as we're not trying to shill some product, love to have them on. All right, guys, happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you on Monday.